Hello guys, and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, hi, my name is Mick. I am the owner and the head of production here at AMSTransfers.com. Basically, we are a screen print, DTF, UV DTF, any kind of transfer you need, we have it. Not only are we a transfer vendor, but we also help people like you start your own DTF transfer business. So if you're interested in that, all the information is down below. But today I thought that we would get back into all of the DTF learning videos, getting into the deep dives of all the issues that come up when running a DTF transfer business. So this video is dedicated for all of the DTF fails out there. Whether you are a DTF business owner yourself or you are just a customer buying DTF transfers, I did a deep dive into all of the most common issues, questions we get asked from our customers, as well as just some of the bigger problems that can come up when you are dealing with DTF transfers. If you have watched my channel for a while, then you know we have definitely had our fair share of fails and problems. So I definitely have a bunch of insight and knowledge when it comes to the DTF fail, but let's just hop straight into the video. So problem number one we are going to start with is going to be blurry or fuzzy prints. This is a classic DTF fail, probably the biggest one of all. Whether you are a printer and you make transfers or you buy them, then we have all seen whether it's a fuzzy white outline or it is just like not great quality. But this does come down to a few different things that you can look into on both the printer side as well as you as a customer side. Starting with if you are just a DTF transfer customer and you're just buying the prints, I would say the biggest issue when it comes to that is that your artwork is not up to quality. What we mean by that is maybe you just bought a file or someone sent you a file to get printed, and if that file isn't 300 DPI, it can cause a lot of fuzziness. It can cause a lot of issues when it comes to the actual printing of the file. This can also happen if you take a small chest logo and you try to blow up into a full front. If you don't have that full front as a 300 DPI file itself, I have seen a lot of customers that get blurry quality pictures. We always try to reach out and tell them beforehand, but if those things do get missed, make sure before you hit submit on any order that your file is 300 DPI. Us personally, we have a quality check on our website, so when you build your gang sheet, it's going to tell you this image may come out blurry. We try to put those precautions in place for you so that you avoid getting the blurry prints, but I would definitely say not having the highest quality file is definitely the biggest issue and the most common when it comes to these fails. However, if you are a DTF owner or you own a printer, then these tips are going to be for you. If your customer has sent you great quality artwork, there is a couple different things that you can check when it comes to the actual settings on the printer. Your occlusion and your diffusion settings might be a little too high, they just might be off, or it could be something as simple as your printer needing a head cleaning or there's a clog in the line. So your first step for the printer, I would say, is going to be cleaning it. Run of cleaning first. Before you start tampering with all of the actual settings of the printer, just run a simple cleaning. It might fix the issue. If not, then you can do a deep dive. So in conclusion, if you're a customer, make sure that your file is up to 300 DPI. If it's not, you can always reach out and companies will help you. We personally will help. And if you are a DTF printer, run a head cleaning. If not, you might want to deep dive into your very specific software and check that your settings are up to par, that they're all aligned, everything. You just want everything to be in shape. Problem number two is for my DTF printers, and if you own one, that is powder not sticking to the transfer or it is curing unevenly. Surprisingly, this is something that I've seen a lot of people have issues with. It could be hard to just dial in those settings and kind of figure out what exactly you need because it does change from film to film and company to company. But the biggest things that cause powder not sticking or not curing properly can come down to the film is not wet enough, which just basically means that the ink is kind of too dried before it actually reaches the powdering side. Can also be that you are just curing too fast or too slow, or even you're just powdering unevenly. But what you can do if it comes down to the actual ink is you can lay down a little bit more white. You don't want it to be too white or too much because then you'll have like that crunchy, hard, not soft peel. But if you lay down a little extra white, it'll also leave the ink a little bit more wet. So that will help the powder have an actual something to stick to. If it comes down to your technique is just not powdering evenly, all you need to do is just gently roll and make sure that the film is even and that it's rolling properly. It's not on one side super tight and on the left side or whatever super loose. Also, just make sure that your oven and your curing and all of that is set to the proper time and temperature. Like I said, with different types of peels as well as different types of inks, sometimes different types of companies, you can have different settings when it comes to the actual curing. So don't just go off like what you find online. Make sure you find the actual temperature and time for the settings or for the equipment and the products and the supplies that you're using. Problem number 3 goes back to my customers that are buying DTF transfers, and that is the print is not transferring properly to the actual garment. And this could be it's cracking after it gets washed, or it could be that it's not all sticking evenly, or it could be that it's little corners of the print is lifting up after you take it off the heat press. And there are 3 main issues that can come from this. The first one is obviously, and probably you're thinking it, you're just not pressing it properly. That is typically the first question that I ask customers when they say that they're having issues. I ask them the time, the temp that they are using to press. 99% of the time they are not following the instructions we sent. They're following something from another company that they were using, or they were following what their friend does. That is typically not going to be the same every single time. You might have like a general, but some companies do differently, and you just need to make sure that you're following the instructions that is directly for the actual company that you're using. And kind of under that same umbrella, you are pressing too short or too long. So if you press it too long, that's going to cause over curing. You might get a burnt print, but you're also going to get some cracking. And if you press too short, you might just not have enough time for the actual transfer to adhere to the garment, and that itself can cause cracking as well, or washing away of the prints. So just make sure that you're following the instructions that are given to you when you get your transfers. It also just doesn't come down to temperature. It might also be your pressure. So make sure, again, you are following the proper pressure that is given to you from your DTF transfer vendor. But if you have too little of pressure, that will cause it not to stick. Too high of pressure, you're just going to have more issues, more burning. So just follow your manufacturer's proper press settings. You can even get a heat gun if you want to see if like your heat press is level, if you want to take it to that. But usually just start with the basic. I'm going to check to make sure that my time and temp are good. Back to my DTF printers, this problem number 4 is for you, and that is banding or lines in the print. We have all seen this. If you've watched my videos, you've seen my banding issues. It happens. And usually this just comes down to a couple of things. One, it can be as simple as just a nozzle needing a cleaning, or a ink clog in the line. Just something as simple as that just running a super quick head cleaning will help fix. It could also mean you have incorrect print head height, and also it could just be that you just have your settings off. Again, just do a simple cleaning first. That will see if it's actually that issue. Sometimes you have to run a couple before you actually go in and start changing settings and start messing with that, because that is a little harder to come back from. If you have like clog buster and all of the stuff that I've recommended to you guys in the past, you can always use that as well. Just don't go to the extreme settings of checking and changing a bunch of settings that you have set on your printer that maybe it's worked for you for years, and then all of a sudden it starts messing up. It could just be a print head also. So don't go in there and taking 0 to 100 super fast. Let's just start with the simple basic steps of doing a head cleaning and all of that. Another one for my DTF printers, which I was very shocked at this one, but the ink is smearing or smudging before curing. And this was something that I also had realized at one point, because I think I had it happen once, and it can be a couple different things, but typically it is just too much ink is being laid down, or there is high humidity and dust on the film. And when that happens, basically it just doesn't allow the ink to lay properly into the actual film. So sometimes you can even have like ink dripping down the design and it just causes a mess. So check the humidity. That is one of the biggest things that you need to do if you're a DTF printer owner. And also just check to see how much ink you're laying down. It typically comes down to the white that you might be laying down a little bit too much of. So that's where I would start. So just dial back those color settings and make sure that if you have high humidity, you are using a dehumidifier in the same room as the printers. This one is for my customers, my DTF transfer customers, and that is kind of in the same boat as I was talking about with the not proper pressure. And the problem is that it is cracking or peeling after washed, or the design looks washed out, like the colors aren't as vibrant. And again, like that same issue, you're gonna have to make sure that your temperature is correctly set to what their manufacturer's settings are supposed to be, as well as the time. You want to make sure that you're pressing at the right time. People question like pressing for too long, so then people are scared to do a second press. We are strong advocates for a second press. It helps to really just push it in. And the way to perfect the second press is you're actually going to not do the same settings. You're going to use the same temperature, but you're not going to do it for as long. 375 for 12 seconds. Your second press, you're not going to do 375 for 12 seconds. You're going to do like 375 for 5 seconds. You just really want to seal it in. So that can cause if you're doing it for too long, and also if you do it for too short. Colors fading typically will come down to the manufacturer's issue. You can reach out to them and be like, hey, my colors don't look good. There's stuff in their settings that they can fix to make sure that the proper amount of ink is actually getting applied. But if it comes down to the actual cracking or the washing after peeling, that's typically going to be a press issue. If it comes down to colors fading, I would definitely reach out to your manufacturer and ask them why your colors would fade within like 1 or 2 washes. A lot of people I also see that have issues when it comes to my DTF transfer customers is that the sizing is not right. So again, a couple things that can come to this. When you are checking to make sure that your artwork is 300 DPI, you want to also make sure that you have no edges on your design. So say you have a design, I'll try to attach one, and it has a white background, and you remove that white background, but there's still like so much space left on that design. That whole design itself, even with the space on the side, will be accounted for. So if you upload a design that you're doing 11 inches, you want it to be 11 inches across, but you haven't cropped it in, and the actual design is only 8 inches across, that's going to be what's printed. It's going to be 11 of the things. So you just want to make sure that you are actually cropping your image. You also want to make sure the same thing for chest logos. I definitely see this more commonly in chest logos. People will upload onto our website they'll do a 4x4 pocket logo, but then when they actually go to upload the design and I put it into the software, it ends up to only be like 1 inch. Typically I would like reach out to them and I'm like, hey, is this like, did you want this as 1 inch because that's what the actual design's coming up as, or did you want me to resize it to make sure that the design is 4 inch? So just make sure that you are actually cropping your design. You can do that very simple in whatever you want to do. Photopea, you can do it in Photoshop, you can do it in Canva, whatever you need to do. It's super easy to just crop an image, but that will help to make sure that you are actually getting the correct size that you need. And lastly, probably the biggest one that people complain about is your prints are feeling too sticky or rubbery or plasticky. And as far as DTF transfers have come in the last couple years, we have definitely progressed that they are not supposed to be as thick or rubbery. Now, of course, if you're doing a huge block of whatever, you'll feel that on the shirt. But if you're just having like your typical design, if you're doing like like I said, a huge white design or a huge black design or like whatever, that you might feel that on the shirt. Again, I'll get into ways that you can not feel it in a second, but if you are doing just a typical design and you feel like it's still a little too rubbery, there's a couple things that you can do. This can come down to too much white on a design. Now, if you are doing a black garment and it's like an all white design, sometimes you are going to need a little bit extra white to prevent dye migration from happening. So you don't want that white design to turn into a gray design. So manufacturers will add a little bit of white on an all white design going on a darker garment. So that will be there. Ways you can fix that is if you want to do a second press, like I said, that will kind of help it sink in a little bit more. Don't over press it. That will just give you kind of that soft feel. You can use a Teflon sheet, you can use parchment paper, whatever you need. But if you're still noticing it, even on like different designs, not just on all white, not just on black, you can definitely reach out to your manufacturer. You can ask them questions. Sometimes it just comes down to, like I said, they have too much white on there or too much of an underbase. They can definitely change those settings. It might also mean that they're just not using great quality materials, but it's definitely something to reach out to and ask, see what they have to say. But hopefully that gives you guys a little insight and maybe some tips on how to help make sure that your prints come out perfectly and just as you want them. You can also reach out to your manufacturer or your company if you want and ask them what settings would go well with this. You know, I'm sure they would I'm sure that every DTF printer watching this is like, please don't tell people to reach out to me and ask. But sometimes it's good for customers to know, because then they have an idea of what they're looking for, one, and two, they have an idea of what is expected of them. And this will just help everyone on all fronts to make sure that everyone is getting exactly what they need, rather than going back and forth with, hey, I need this better file, I need this, or my print didn't look out or turn out great. So hopefully that this just gives every party involved on the printing side as well as the customer side what to do to make sure that your prints are coming out perfect. But that's gonna wrap up today's video, guys. I know that it was a little bit of a shorter one, but this is just kind of something that a lot of people have been asking. I get it in my messages, I get it in my comments, just, hey, this happened, how do I do it? Or I have this print and it doesn't look right. So I spend my days a lot helping people with their artwork and helping people make sure that they get their press perfect. So I did want to just pass that on to you. But thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you back on Monday. We are back to daily vlogging, and I will see you guys then.